Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to learn about a very important topic, that is the location and function of sympathetic receptors. As we know that there are two main types of sympathetic receptor, that is alpha receptor and beta receptors. Alpha and beta receptors are distributed throughout the body, but each of the receptors is having different nature. For example, there are two types of alpha receptors and three types of beta receptors, and each of the receptors is having different nature. Almost the composition or chemistry of each and every receptor is somewhat matching, but still all of them are having different functions. I'm going to make it very easy for you. The alpha 1 and beta 1 receptors are always stimulatory. The alpha 1 and beta 1 receptors are always stimulatory. Similarly, the alpha 2 and beta 2 receptors are inhibitory in majority of cases. The alpha 2 and beta 2 receptors are inhibitory in majority of cases. Likewise, the beta 3 receptor is sometimes considered as a subtype of beta 1 receptor. So the beta 3 receptor is also stimulatory. So from stimulatory, we mean that the stimulatory receptor will contract the muscles, the stimulatory receptor will contract the glands, the stimulatory receptor will lead to the secretion of enzyme, the stimulatory receptor will lead to the secretion of hormone, the stimulatory receptor will lead to the contraction of muscles, and similarly the inhibitory receptor will lead to the relaxation of muscles. The inhibitory receptor will lead to the inhibition of secretion of any hormone or any enzyme. Now coming toward the detailed location and function of all the alpha and beta receptors. In this slide, I have drawn the diagrams of various organs inside the body. I have also mentioned the specific receptors which are available on the specific organ. First of all, starting from the heart, I'm going to magnify it. This diagram represents the heart. As I have mentioned, that two major types of receptors are present inside the heart. Inside the heart, actually, only beta 1 receptors are present, and alpha 2 receptors are present in the coronary arteries. As I have mentioned previously, that the beta 1 receptor is always stimulatory. So the beta 1 receptor which are present over here on the SA node, this is also called the pacemaker. On the pacemaker, the beta 1 receptor is present, and this beta 1 receptor is responsible for the increase of heart rate, because it activates the SA node, and SA node is responsible for the production of a signal which lead to the increase of heart rate. So when the beta 1 receptor is activated on the SA node, so it leads to the increase of heart rate. The beta 1 receptor is also present on the myocardium or the cardiac muscles. So as I have told you previously that the beta 1 receptor is always stimulatory, so the beta 1 receptor on the myocardium will lead to the increased contraction of the heart muscle, increased contractility of the cardiac muscles. So the beta 1 receptor on a SA node increase the heart rate, while the beta 1 receptor on the cardiac muscle increase the contractility of the heart. The alpha 2 receptors are present on the coronary arteries, especially on the small coronary artery. And what is the function of alpha 2 receptors over here? Actually, the alpha 2 receptors are present on the smooth muscles of the coronary arteries, and this alpha 2 receptor is responsible for the relaxation of the smooth muscles of the coronary arteries, which leads to the dilation of the coronary arteries. So it leads to the increased supply of blood to the cardiac muscle. So the alpha 2 receptors which are present on the coronary arteries leads to relaxation of the coronary arteries and leads to the increased supply of blood to the cardiac muscles. Before going to the detail of other receptors which are present inside the body, I'm going to tell you some background of the sympathetic receptors. as the sympathetic nervous system is also called the triple F system. The triple F system represent the three words: the fight, fright, and flight. The sympathetic nervous system is stimulated when we are in these three condition: when we are going to fight someone, when we are in very fright condition, fright or fear condition, when we are scaring from something, this is called fright. And when we are going to go away from someone due to fear, that is called flight. Flight mean to go away, to escape, to escape. So during fight condition, or during fair condition, or during escape condition, the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated. Why the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated during these three conditions? Because the sympathetic nervous system gives sympathy to the body during these three conditions. The sympathetic nervous system provide us more energy to fight someone, to fight something, to fight some stress condition. The sympathetic nervous system provide more courage to the body, the more courage to the brain. The sympathetic nervous system provide more accuracy to our body organs. More accuracy is also good for the triple F condition. I will tell you later. Similarly, the sympathetic nervous system also provide us good protection. The sympathetic nervous system provide us good protection qualities to the body, to have more chances of survival during these three conditions. Because during these three conditions, during the fight, during fright, and during flight, we can reach to death. So to avoid death, and to get more chances of survival and get protected from the enemy, get protected from stress, the sympathetic nervous system give us energy, courage, accuracy, and more chances of survival to the body. Now you can focus on the heart. During the stimulation of sympathetic nervous system, these three receptors, the beta 1 receptor on the SI node, the beta 1 receptor on the cardiac muscle, and the alpha 2 receptors on the coronary arteries, give more energy to the heart. It gave more energy. The heart rate is increased, and the contractility is increased, and the cardiac muscles are supplied with more blood, so that the heart pump more blood to the vital organs of the body, to get protected from enemy, to get protected from stress, to get protected from this condition. Similarly, if we focus on the heart, we can see over here that from the aortic arc of the heart, the common carotid artery arises, which supplies blood to the brain. So this common carotid artery, the smooth muscle of this common carotid artery, also contain the beta 2 receptors. So the beta 2 receptor, which are present on the common carotid artery, leads to the relaxation of this common carotid artery. So it leads to the supply of more and more blood to the brain. So the beta 1 receptor is also present on the common carotid artery to provide more blood to the brain. Similarly, the beta 2 receptors are also present on the brachial artery, which supply blood to the muscles, to the skeletal muscles. All the skeletal muscles are provided by the arteries, and all the arteries which provide blood to the skeletal muscle, to all the skeletal muscle, contain the beta 2 receptor. You should know this point. You should note this point, that all the skeletal muscles are supplied with the blood, and the blood vessels which supply blood to the skeletal muscle contain the beta 2 receptor. All the blood vessels which supply blood to the skeletal muscle contain the beta 2 receptor. Why the beta 2 receptors are present over here? Because to provide more blood to get relaxed during this stress situation, to these arteries get relaxed, and during relaxation of these arteries, more and more blood is supplied to the skeletal muscle. And when the skeletal muscles are supplied with more and more blood, what happens to the body? We get more and more energy, and we can fight the stress condition. We can fight this triple F condition due to stimulation of sympathetic nervous system. Similarly, the beta 2 receptors are also present inside the lungs. Inside the lungs, mainly the lung is made up of alveoli and the pathways which provide airway to the alveoli. So the trachea, the bronchi or bronchus, and bronchioles, and as well as the alveoli, all of this airway contain the beta 2 receptors. And during stress condition, the beta 2 receptors are activated. When the beta 2 receptors are activated, uh, all the airway gets relaxed, and when all the airway gets relaxed, the lungs is provided with more and more oxygen. The lung is provided with more and more air, and more air is when provided to the lungs, more and more oxygen is absorbed from the lungs, and more oxygen is required for more energy to the body. So during stress condition, the lungs also play a vital role in provision of oxygen and provision of energy to the body. Similarly, the liver also contain beta 2 receptors on the hepatocytes. On the cell membrane of the hepatocyte, the beta 2 receptors are there. And what is the function of beta 2 receptors over there on the hepatocyte? The function of the beta 2 receptor on the hepatocyte is to increase the glycolysis, to increase the production of glucose. When the glycogen is split into glucose units, the glucose unit work in the production of energy. The glucose unit is used for the production of ATPs. So to get more and more ATPs, the glycolysis or the glycolysis is initiated or enhanced by the beta 2 receptors which are present on the hepatocytes. Similarly, the beta 2 receptors on the hepatocytes also stimulate the gluconeogenesis, also enhance the gluconeogenesis, also enhance the production of energy from protein and from fats. Also, instead of glucose, the production of energy or the metabolism of protein and fats. That is called gluconeogenesis. So, or the production of glucose from the protein or any other component, that is called gluconeogenesis. So to increase the gluconeogenesis, the beta 2 receptors are there inside the liver. So inside the liver, the beta 2 receptor enhance the glycolysis, and it also enhance the gluconeogenesis. Similarly, the pancreas contain some islets which are called islet of Langerhans, and islet of Langerhans is responsible for the secretion of hormone that is called insulin. So the islet of Langerhans contain alpha 2 receptor. So when the sympathetic nervous system is activated, the alpha 2 receptor are activated, and as I have told you that alpha 2 receptors are majorly are always inhibitory. So it leads to the inhibition of the insulin secretion. So it inhibit the secretion of insulin. When the insulin secretion is inhibited, what happens? It lead to the decreased amount of insulin inside the blood. When the inside the blood the insulin amount is decreased, what happens? The glucose concentration inside the blood is increased, and that is good for sympathetic nervous system, because the sympathetic nervous system require more and more glucose inside the bloodstream, so that the glucose provide more and more energy to avoid stress, to avoid enemy, to avoid this frightful situation. And now coming towards all the intestinal tract contain the alpha 1 receptor, including the sphincters. And as I have told you that alpha 1 receptor are present on the muscles of the are the muscularis of the of whole intestinal tract. The alpha 1 receptors are also present on the splanchnic arteries. On the splanchnic artery are the all the arteries are, you can say, the mesenteric arteries. All the mesenteric arteries contain the alpha 1 receptor. So the alpha 1 receptor are, when activated or stimulated, what happens? It decrease the supply of blood to the intestine, because these alpha 1 receptor lead to the contraction of these blood vessels. When these blood vessels are contracted, the blood supply to the intestine is decreased, and when the blood supply to the intestine is decreased, what happens? The blood supply which is decreased to the intestine, that blood is diverted to vital organs of the body, which leads to production of the body. which lead to protection of the body. So to protect the body from enemy, to protect the body from stress, we need to divert the blood from the intestine to vital organs, to the muscle, to the brain, to the eyes, to many vital organs, to the lungs. So over here, the sphincters, all the sphincters also contain the alpha 1 receptor. So the alpha 1 receptor stimulation leads to the contraction of sphincter, which leads to the decreased peristaltic movement, because it do not allow the food to get entered to this to next portion of the intestine. So all the sphincter inside the gastrointestinal tract are also contracted. Now coming towards the kidney. The kidney contain two type of receptor. The blood vessel which provide blood to the kidney contain the alpha 1 receptor. The blood vessel or the renal artery contain the alpha 1 receptor. So the alpha 1 receptor on the renal artery is contracted. Because why this is contracted? Because the contraction of the renal artery leads to decreased supply of blood to the kidney. Because in the stress situation, the kidney do not provide protection to the body. The kidney is not needed during fight or during stress situation. The kidney is not needed over here. So the blood supply to the kidney is decreased due to the contraction of the renal artery, which contain the alpha 1 receptor. Similarly, the beta 1 receptors are present on the juxtaglomerular apparatus, are the juxtaglomerular cells. The juxtaglomerular cell inside the kidney contain the beta 1 receptor. Beta 1 receptor are only present on the renin producing cells inside the kidney. The renin producing cells are the juxtaglomerular cell. I am going to show you in the next diagram. Here is the diagram. This is the Bowman capsule. This is the glomerulus. This is the apparent arteriole, and this is the efferent arteriole. So the apparent arteriole contain over here the juxtaglomerular cell. These are the juxtaglomerular cell, and these juxtaglomerular cell contain what? This contain beta 1 receptor, and beta 1 receptor. Uh, as I have told you that the kidney contain beta 1 receptor. It means that the kidney contain the beta 1 receptor only in the juxtaglomerular cell, which are responsible for the secretion of renin. And what is the function of renin? The function of renin is to increase the blood pressure. The function of the renin is to decrease the peripheral blood supply, to contract the various you can say various capillaries, and to provide more and more blood to the vital organs, to decrease the urine production, or to decrease the secretion of sodium and other ions in the urine, or to increase the absorption of sodium from the urine, or to increase the absorption of sodium from the nephron. So the renin is secreted from the juxtaglomerular cell. And why the renin is secreted? Because the beta 1 receptor which are present on the inside the kidney on the juxtaglomerular cell is responsible for the secretion of renin, which lead to increased blood pressure, and which lead to the increased absorption of sodium from the nephrons. So during stress situation, the beta 1 receptor also play a vital role in the increase of blood pressure, to supply more and more blood to the vital organs. Now coming toward the next organ, this represent the uterus or womb. So the uterus or the womb of ladies contain the myometrium. It contain the muscle layer or muscular layer, and that muscular layer contain the beta 2 receptors. And as I have told you previously, that the beta 2 receptors are always responsible for the relaxation. So when during when somebody is during stress situation, or somebody is going to if a female is pregnant, and he is followed by a dog, or he is followed by some dangerous animal. So she is going to escape from that animal. So during stress situation, the beta 2 receptors are activated, and the beta 2 receptors leads to what? It leads to the relaxation of this myometrium. When this myometrium is relaxed, there is no chance of the abortion, or there is no chance of the miscarriage. So the baby inside the, or the fetus inside the fetus inside the lady is protected from dangerous situation, or that is protected from miscarriage. So this is also beauty of nature, that during stress situation, the beta 2 receptor on the uterus is activated, which leads to the relaxation of the uterus, and which leads to the inhibition of the miscarriage. And now coming towards this one, this represent the ovary. This represent the ovary. I should also make or have the testes, but I have not drawn that diagram. So the both the ovaries and both the testes are supplied by the blood vessels, and the blood vessel which supply blood to the ovaries and testes contain the alpha 1 receptor. So the blood supply to the ovaries and testes are decreased. Why? During stress situation, the blood supply to the ovaries and testes is secreted, because it's decreased. Why? Because the blood supply is decreased to the reproductive organs, because in the stress situation we are not going to produce kids. In the stress situation we are going to escape from the enemy. In the stress situation we are going to escape ourselves. So in that cases, the individual is not going to reproduce any kids. So in that situation, the blood supply to the reproductive system is decreased. Now coming towards the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder also contain muscles, and those muscles contain the beta 2 receptors. As I have told you that the beta 2 receptors are responsible for relaxation of muscles. So the urinary bladder is relaxed during stress situation to avoid the peeing, to avoid the making water. So to avoid the excretion of urine, to avoid the urination, the stress situation, the beta 2 receptors are activated, and the urinary bladder is relaxed to accommodate more and more urine, to give space more and more urine, and to avoid the peeing of urine. So this contain the beta 2 receptor. Similarly, the sphincter muscles or hair on the trigon muscles or hair, and over here trigon muscles are present, and the sphincter is also present. So the sphincter which are present before the urethra, the internal sphincter and the external sphincter, both the sphincter contain alpha 1 receptor, and the alpha 1 receptor is responsible for the contraction of internal and external sphincter, as well as the trigon muscles, to avoid the urination, to avoid the leakage of urine. Now coming towards the next one, this is AdiFalse tissue. This is AdiFalse tissue. The AdiFalse tissue contain both the beta 1 and beta 3 receptor. I have not mentioned the beta 3 receptor, but these cells, the AdiFalse or adipocyte, contain the beta 1 or beta 3 receptors, and both are these are stimulatory, and both of these are responsible for the lipolysis. During stress situation, the lipid is converted into glycerol and fatty acids, which are used in the production of energy. So during stress situation we need more and more energy. So during stress situation, the all the fats deposit are splitted to glycerol and fatty acid, and those are they all the fats deposit are passed to the blood vessel to provide more and more energy to the body. So the lipolysis is initiated or enhanced by the beta 1 receptor inside the lipocytes. The blood vessel which supply blood to the lipocytes co- contain the beta 2 receptor. The blood vessel which is responsible for the supply of blood to the AdiFalse tissue contain beta 2 receptors. So the beta 2 receptors relax these blood vessels, and when these blood vessels are relaxed, what happens? It leads to the supply of more and more blood to the lipocytes to carry more and more lipids from these deposits. The relaxation of these blood vessels is actually for the carriage, or for the to take more and more lipids from these deposits for the production of energy. Similarly, the skin, all the skin contain alpha 1 receptor, or all the blood vessel which supply blood to the skin contain the alpha 1 receptor. So all the blood vessel which supply blood to the skin is contracted due to presence of alpha 1 receptor to decrease supply of blood to the skin. Why during stress situation blood supply to skin is decreased? Why during stress situation the blood supply to skin is decreased? Because the skin during stress situation, the skin is not used to fight. Or if somebody is injured, if you get injured through skin, there will be decreased bleeding. To get decreased bleeding, because the blood supply to skin is decreased, so there will be decreased bleeding, or to avoid bleeding, and to get more and more blood to the vital organs, to the muscles, the blood supply from the skin is diverted towards. It mostly happen when somebody get injured during fight. There is no bleeding at that time, but when that individual is going to be relaxed, after relaxation of that individual, the injury start bleeding, the blood going to leak out from that injured point, because that during injury the skin, or the blood vessel which supply blood to the skin are contracted. But when somebody is going to relaxed, during relaxation, the blood supply to the skin is once again normalized. When the blood supply to the skin is normalized, the bleeding start from that point. Similarly, coming toward the eye contain the pupil. This spot, this is pupil, and around the pupil there is iris. The iris contain muscles which are called radial muscle. I'm going to show you in this diagram. In this diagram, we can see that these muscles, these are radial muscles. These are circular smooth muscles, and this is the pupil. This is the pupil. So the radial muscles contain the alpha 1 receptors, and when the alpha 1 receptors are activated, or when the sympathetic nervous system is activated, the alpha 1 receptor is activated. When the alpha 1 receptors get activated, the diameter of these muscle become less. These muscle are contracted. So when these muscle are contracted, the pupil become dilated. The dilation of pupil, dilation of pupil, that is called mydriasis. The mydriasis happen during which situation? During the stress situation, the diameter of pupil is increased. Why the diameter of pupil is increased during the stimulation of sympathetic nervous system? This is because to have a big window to see your enemy. If you are going to shoot some dangerous animal, some harmful animal, so you can have a good accuracy when your pupil is dilated. And if you are going to shoot someone, if you are going to blow someone, or blow some enemy, or shoot some enemy, the diameter of the pupil is increased, so that you can have a good accuracy, and you can have a good result to save your life from the enemy, to save your life from the stress situation. Similarly, the brain mostly contains the dopamine receptor actually, but the recent research shows that the brain also contains the beta 1 receptor, and there is no exact location of beta 1 receptor, but the beta 1 receptor actually increase the function of brain. So during stress situation, if somebody is going to decide whether to fight, or to flight, or to combat the enemy, or to get away from the enemy, the brain decide very accurately, and the brain decide very quickly. So the to increase the efficiency of the brain, the beta 1 receptors are there inside the brain. During stress situation, our hair also gets straightened. The straightening of hair is due to presence of erector pili muscle. The erector pili muscle are present at the base of each hair, and the erector pili muscle contain the alpha 1 receptor. So the alpha 1 receptors are activated during sympathetic nervous system stimulation. So the contraction of the erector pili muscle lead to the straightening of hair. And what is the function of this straight hair during stress situation? Almost there is no function of straightening of hair in the human, but in the animals, the straightening of hair or the straightening of feather help in the scaring of the enemy, to scare their enemy by the straightening of their feather. I'm going to show you a diagram. In this diagram, you can see that during fight situation, the feather gets straightened so that the opponent can see a big opponent in front of him. Due to straightening up the feather, he can see a big enemy. He can see a big bulky enemy. So when he see a big enemy, so he gets scared from his enemy. So this is also useful in some animals, not in humans. In this way, during stress situation, the blood vessel contain the platelets, and the platelets also contain the alpha 2 receptor. The platelets inside the blood vessels contain the alpha 2 receptor, then the alpha 2 receptor inside the platelets are activated. When the alpha 2 receptors are activated inside the platelets, what happens? It leads to the aggregation of platelets around the fibrinogen. So during stress situation, if somebody is going to be injured, so the fibrinogen is activated, and the fibrinogen get combined with the fibrin get combined with the aggregate of the platelets. So it become very easy to stop the bleeding during stress situation, because during stress situation the platelets are activated due to presence of alpha 2 receptors. Moreover, the alpha 1 receptors are also present in the sweat glands. Not all the sweat gland contain the alpha 1 receptor. The sweat gland which are present in the armpits, in this area and in this groin area. So the sweat gland which are there are two types of sweat gland. I'm going to show you uh, two types of sweat gland: the eccrine sweat gland, which open directly to the skin, and the apocrine sweat gland, which opens with the hair. This is called apocrine sweat gland. So this apocrine sweat gland contain the alpha 1 receptor. So the alpha 1 receptor which are present on this apocrine sweat gland, these are present on in the armpits and in the groin area. So during stress situation, what happened during stress situation, the the alpha 1 receptors are stimulated in the apocrine sweat gland, which secrete more and more sweat during stress situation. So the secretion of sweat is enhanced due to the presence of alpha 1 receptor on apocrine sweat gland, which are present in the armpits and groin areas. One more thing, as I have told you that the radial muscles of the eye contain the alpha 1 receptor, which increase the pupil diameter, which increase the mydriasis. So the eye also contain the beta 2 receptor. Where are the beta 2 receptor present inside the eye? I'm going to show you exactly where the beta 2 receptors are present inside the eye. The ciliary muscle contain the beta 2 receptor. These are the ciliary muscle, and these ciliary muscle contain the beta 2 receptors. So the beta 2 receptors which are present on the ciliary muscle leads to the relaxation of ciliary muscle during stress situation. So during stress situation, the ciliary muscles are relaxed, and the relaxation of ciliary muscles increase the concave nature of this lens. This lens get converted from convex to concave. So when the convexity of the lens is decreased and the concavity of the lens is increased, the far objects are very easy to see by the eyes. The eyes are now very efficient to see the far object. So to focus on the far object, the concavity of the eye is increased due to the relaxation of the ciliary muscles due to the presence of the beta 2 receptors. This was all about the location and functions of all the alpha and beta receptors throughout the body.